Welcome to Ranger Reviews, a web series where we look at episodes of the TV show Power Rangers and then discuss them. Today we're exploring the second episode of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers titled High Five. We open at the youth center where Jason is being a jock, climbing a rope, while Zach and Kim cheer him on. And then Trini's just like being a wuss and explains how he needs to be careful because it's so high up. And also, didn't Trini just like pilot a giant ass tiger last time? Like, what's your damage? Meanwhile, the embarrassment that is Billy comes in, and for some reason, while he's like trying to talk to the others, Jason takes his opportunity to wrap his beefy legs around him and swing him to and fro. This makes Bulk and Skull laugh, who then are challenged by the teens to climb the rope. Bulk tries and of course, brings down the entire rope with part of the ceiling because he's fat. The 90s were not kind to those who weren't in shape or intelligent. Rita is watching this for some reason and decides on a pretty great plan. She's gonna trap the Rangers the same way that she trapped Zordon, in a time warp. Back at the youth center, Billy has a science boner over the fact that he just created these new devices for all of them to use that look like wristwatches, called the communicators. These will allow them to communicate with Alpha and Zordon, and oh, by the way, he invented freaking teleportation on accident. Like, what? That being said, the five get teleported to the command center where Alpha shows off that he's a generic white guy for referring to them as homeboys and homegirls, and he asks them what brings him to the hood. He then just zaps himself on the console and runs around a lot in circles. Like, why was this one of my favorite episodes as a child? Meanwhile, Finster isn't done with the time device yet, so he has to make a monster named Bones, who is apparently in for too long and in consequence was born with a voice effect on his voice. And Finster is like magically ready right afterwards, and the time device is fired off into blatant Japanese footage. Meanwhile, Zordon sees what's happening, and instead of telling the Rangers to avoid that because then they'll end up like him, he tells them to go check it out on the foothill of some mountain nearby where the time device landed. They do so where they are confronted by putty patrollers. Everyone starts to fight, but Billy has the bright idea of breaking the putties away, and it genuinely just looks like Billy is booking it away. Like, Billy starts scaling the mountain because this episode is about heights, and Trini is left on her own with some putties and has to hide, but then she proceeds to scream at the top of her lungs how Billy is too high. First of all, the putties she just dodged would have definitely heard that. Secondly, the fact that they just made a woman scream, "Billy, you're too high!" a number of times for a children's show is kind of fantastic. So Trini has to conquer her fears by scaling a designated path / side of the mountain to where Billy is, but then Billy is cornered by a putty. Billy attempts to morph, and he butterfingers the fuck out of it and tosses his morpher over the side. Well, good luck finding that one, guys! Trini shows up and tricks the putty into coming after them, which makes no sense because she has to run past the putty in order to confront it. Like, maybe be a little bit more efficient. The putty charges and flies off the side of the mountain, and let's hope he doesn't find Billy's morpher down there, or else there's gonna be like a gimp Blue Ranger running around. Meanwhile, Jason, Zach, and Kimberly are struggling against a group of putties, which makes no sense, but it's okay because their solution is to form a human chain and hit the things into like cacti. Fine, whatever. Bones has appeared in the carnival in town. Remember? Like Bones, the monster, and oh, by the way, he's actually just riding a damn carousel, so like, can we just like let him have his moment? The Rangers morph there, and somehow Billy has his morpher again, and they arrive to just be thrown away into another dimension by Bones. There, they fight skeleton-themed soldiers while Babu and Squat show up to blow up the time device that I totally forgot existed. They do just that, but not before Trini rips off Bones' head and tosses it down a crevice in the dimension of where he dies, and like, what the hell is happening? Oh, also a giant hand just reaches in and grabs Jason and leaves, and then the bomb goes off and the Rangers are thrown from the dimension. So like, were they trapped in the time warp now, or like what? Jason gives zero shits because he's fighting a monster aptly named Giant, who he just shoots in the eyes with his sidearm, the Blade Blaster, which is a gun that turns into a knife. Tyrannosaurus Zord shows up. Jason gets in, and together they just obliterate the Giant into a pretty sweet wind / dirt blast thing. Back at the youth center, we are introduced to the owner of the joint, Ernie. He's talking to an extra about how the Power Rangers saved the day, and I wonder if they know that Trini ripped off that dude's head and that, you know, Jason just kind of created a random ass tornado. Billy lets the team know that Alpha and Zordon helped repair the communicators and says that that is more phenomenal. So apparently that's a thing. Oh, also Trini proves that she's over her fear of heights because she's scared by Zach behind her and she instinctively climbs the rope all the way to the top because that was super natural. Ta-da! This episode was strange because you know, they're already breaking the status quo that was barely set in the first episode. The monster doesn't grow giant. There's 2 monsters. There's 2 types of patrollers. Only 1 Zord is used, and somehow an episode about a skeleton trying to trap them in a time warp has a B-plot about Trini being afraid of heights. Seems like a lot of ideas crammed into a 20-minute episode, but hey, at least it's not boring. Let's see if they continue the trend next week with the episode titled Teamwork. May the power protect you.